No. Oh, yeah, I'm saying what? They're welcome.
I think it's lovely that you guys do this and you come, and thank you. So even though most of you know each other, we're still going to go around the room real fast. I love your pink nails, Kathy. Everybody. And we'll start over here and just your clear nails, Jordan. They're very nice. Don't want to leave you out, sir. Just say your name and just go down and around. And if there's a fun fact to share that's new, feel free. So Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm Kathy Van Fettenberg.
Jordan Belton.
I just joined.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I need to get you your emails.
John Schrader, Epic Lending. Scott Simon, just joined as well. Excited to be here.
Pacific Conway.
Louise Harrison.
Awesome, Mandy Neat. Yay! All right. So today we're going to go over one of the most basic concepts in real estate, but it's also the foundation for success. Would you agree with me, if you don't know your value, why would anybody pay you? Like, what are you if you don't know your value to the transaction or to a person? Yeah, there's this exactly. There's this one guy named Greg Markoff that I always love learning. Greg teaches a certified negotiation expert designation. It's a whole nother thing. Lucinda, like GRI, you stick to it, my friend.
Yeah,
Kathy, you guys keep rocking it.
and I'll keep on doing the sponsorships too, if they're that easy to get.
Oh, scholarships are
Just
great,
The first two, and then
Okay.
you're on your own after that.
but you have 5 years to do it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you guys will be good.
From what my speaking.
You did it.
Spent all the time looking at, I only have one to do if I get this wrong.
So what they're talking about is your Graduate Realtor Institute designation. If you guys don't know about it, it's your GRI. It's azgri.com. It is the best designation to actually do real estate with. They say your master's, which I'm not even ready to tell you about it, but I'm going to tell you about it. Yeah. Okay. It's CRS, Certified Residential Specialist. And that's a national designation, but it teaches you more of a different business side, a different way of thinking. And then it helps you grow through a network nationally. I like CRS very much, but I love GRI because GRI is specific to Arizona. And so every time you take a GRI class, you can get out there and do the next level. Did you already go to GRI agency with me? Is that why?
No, you had one scheduled for, I think it's online or Prescott or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. I just look weekly and
It's in
show
2
up.
weeks, on the 18th and 19th. I think.
I'm so
I
glad
got
you
my
did.
calendar.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you teaching? When are you teaching it? Oh, cool.
That's what we said this year.
Well,
I
that's,
don't know if I'll go or not. It depends
Oh.
on how this first goes.
I hope you go because it's it's those 6 hours of agency. So what we're going to talk about is understanding your value. And as I said, Greg used to say, if you don't know your value, you're a parasite sucking the life out of the deal and the person. And I can
Even more than that.
visualize that. So I think about it. I'm a very visual learner personally. So I'm always like, I see it. And then I was like, no, they're the mucus on the parasite on the client, sucking the life out of the parasite. They're sucking the life out of the client. Like it just keeps going for me. Like it just keeps building. So you need to know your value or there is no reason to use you, right? And if you believe in you, then you're able to get others to believe in you. Because if you sit there and you're like, why would I hire me? And you can't come up with a reason. I have no idea why anybody else would, right? Like you have to be your first own fan. So anybody here can tell me how many fiduciary duties you owe a client. 6. Yeah. You got it. And you got it. You said it a little different.
What did you say?
You said old car, I said coal, but I think that's only 5.
Cold AC.
I'm going back away.
Okay. Yeah. And I used to use a carload and the second A was advocacy. Because if you say them right, you have obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, and reasonable skill and care. Doesn't that define an advocate? So when people say, what do you do? What do you say?
Good call.
I
Which helps me remember it.
I
'Cause I
have,
had that discussion yesterday.
I have looked at that lately because I was struggling with what do I bring? Why hire me rather than someone else? And I thought about what I like about selling real estate, and I really like going about for my clients. I like advocating for them, and so that's what I like to do.
So if I met you at a bar, right, because you're hanging out with your family and I'm having margaritas, I'm like, oh, the house. And you're like, oh, let me tell you, I'm in real estate. And or I just said, what do you do?
I advocate for people buying and selling homes.
Nice.
Ah, okay.
Do you say something different?
I don't talk to people.
Yeah, what do you
I
say?
want to go to school.
I'd say I have a really limited position that every time somebody talks to me about it, I have to go in there for an hour. And they're like, what do you do? I go do real estate, and they just look at me and just start laughing. And I just start talking.
Oh, that's cool. As long as you can follow up. I always say I'm a home advocate or a shelter advocate. Oh, I just do little things like help people obtain their basic need of shelter. Can I help you? Do you have a shelter? Do you like your shelter? How can we change that shelter? And so it's up to you, but then they go, well, how do you represent me? All right. So if you had to say, and Lucinda, when you come this month to class, you're gonna like leave this like stumped in your brain.
Okay.
If you had to close your eyes and not read this line by line, and someone goes, how do you represent me? If you sat there and said, obedience, loyalty, I'm just letting you know, they're going brain dead. They don't even like hear what you're saying anymore, right? So how do you say you represent them? How do you describe what you give them without saying advocate? Like, how could you describe it in a way that they're like emotionally connected to you?
Fiduciary.
Yeah.
Fiduciary duties are to you, like loyalty when going through a transaction, is making sure that you and I are on the same page. And that
No, I'm just listening because before you went to real estate school, Jordan, if someone said, I'm going to be your fiduciary, I'm just wondering what you thought about.
no idea. Well, that's why I was like, my fiduciaries would be towards you. I guess fiduciaries, like people, if somebody said fiduciary, something like, I want you to know being real, me the person who needs to be in real estate.
But that sometimes can produce a conflict of interest because your fiduciary, sometimes your client is really your customer, and you know where I come from. So this is what's always going through my head, and so what I have to do is wrap my head around the difference between out here, everybody calls a customer a client. When
They're fine.
Oh, but I think we're going down a different path with you right
Okay.
now. You're going into limited representation,
okay.
but their customer is not the client.
You're
The customer is the other side. The client is the party in which you represent. But when you guys are all talking like this, I just want you to know you didn't start talking like any of these terms until you obtained your license. And the person you're trying to get to use you, they haven't gone to real estate school. And if you told my mom that you owe her fiduciaries, she would go to the medical world, right? And that's a whole different discussion. An attorney is going to go somewhere completely, like they come from a different background. So what I like to say, and you might think this is dorky, but I'm going to tell you, Jordan, if you like humor, this is the way I roll. And if people don't laugh and smile at me, they probably shouldn't work with me. I say, well, when you hire me, I become your golden retriever. I'm excited to see you. Everything you tell me, I keep to myself, and I tell you everything I find out throughout the transaction. And can a human visualize a golden retriever?
Of course,
Do you know why?
everybody knows that. The golden retrievers, but
Because we've been Disney trained. I mean, seriously, like if you could visualize the TV and a golden retriever and all the happy feelings you felt, we've been Disney trained. So then the customer, like you're saying, I always say, and to the other side, when I'm representing you and I have your back, I'm like a Siamese cat. I'm honest and truthful, but I might bite. Hey, Connor. Hey, Chris. How's it going? Hey, Jenna. How you doing? Hey, Marcia.
Would you like, can I ask?
Well, how would you say it?
Well, on a wider range, one of the things that drives me nuts, even as an agent,
is when other agents saying, I want the ADRE and CRV or whatever, and they're talking to me and I have no idea what they're talking about, because I made sure that I don't use those terms, because people will use them with their clients. Oh, give me the spuds and the LSU and clients have no idea what you're talking about. And if you say that, if you get in the habit of using that, if you want to be quick and whatever, you're just gonna lose people.
I agree, because people don't know.
It's the form. I think
But that's,
agency disclosure, like when someone said ADE, you know, so people are like, I'm like,
they call this the ready form, but good luck with that one.
I'm like ADD, so don't ADE. I don't know what you're talking about.
So I like what you're pointing out, which is like, if we stay in our own bubble of language, you're not dumbing it down to a consumer to get it. What's actually happening is you're looking like the dummy because they have to pretend they get it. Right? So we have to speak plain English. So like something to think about when we're going to talk in a minute about more in depth of where your value comes from here is how are you getting that message across without boring them to death? Can anybody tell me what lines? You could just pick one. You could go under buyer broker, you go under seller broker, outline your fiduciary duties. Yeah, 1A. Even then we're like, I think that's line 9.
Yeah.
So 9 and 13.
Yeah.
And if you look at this, it says a broker has a fiduciary of loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, and accounting when dealing with the party in which we represent. Okay, but that didn't say reasonable skill and care, right?
Right.
So where's that?
Interesting, 'cause my phone didn't have that.
Yeah, it didn't.
23.
Yep, 23, regardless of who the broker represents, we shall always exercise reasonable skill and care. So that's the piece of competency of what are you working within? What realm are you working within? Are you truly giving reasonable skill and care to the client? What is reasonable skill and care? If you have to think of a visual, and I'm going to let you guys define it after I tell you the visual. For me, it's, do you remember falling as a kid and getting your little knee cut open or your hand? You fell on your hand. I always fell on my hand. I always try to catch myself. Love the dress, Jenna. And it's all scratched up or my knee scratched up. If my mom had Band-Aids, I got a Band-Aid and that was reasonable skill and care. If my mom didn't have Band-Aids that day, we washed it out and it aired out, right? It's good to have these things air out. And that was reasonable skill and care. So what would reasonable skill and care really break down to in real estate? No, not really truthful and honest as much as your actions. So if you're out there practicing, what would another way of thinking of reasonable skill and care be? But I like truthful and honest, and we'll get to that in a second. Go ahead.
Here's how I look at it. I have to remain knowledgeable. So I read, I study, I know, and if I'm in the spot and I think I know, I still check with my broker. So that's reasonable skill and care, because I'm working to the highest level of the knowledge expected as a professional.
Thank you. And if I was selling a property with a septic tank, right, which is also known as an on-site wastewater treatment facility, and I didn't know that, and I was representing a buyer, and I'm going to write that offer, and I didn't know what form to add to the contract. Would I be practicing reasonable skill and care? No, exactly. It's competency. It's the standard of practice in which we all work. So if you're working with septics and you never worked with a septic, reasonable skill and care would be what you said, which is to call your office and pair up with someone in the expertise area or ask for more assistance. Instead of just saying, oh, we're fine, and not including the on-site wastewater treatment facility addendum, because you were like, nothing in the forms, to Chris's point, starts with the word septic. Right? So there's reasonable skill and care. Okay. Confidentiality. I'm representing a buyer. and the buyer quit their job today. And the buyer needs income to qualify for the loan. At what point, if ever, do I have to tell the other side?
Oh, they're right away. That's important
And
If
why
they're
would I
right
have
away.
to tell them right away?
because they can't follow through on their side of the transaction.
Because it's a material fact based on their ability to close. No, you had it. That's exactly it, because they couldn't follow through. But then my client tells me, as soon as we close on this house, I'm divorcing my husband.
As a preference, I don't keep that confidential, right?
Yeah. And then you avoid them throughout the rest of the transaction, so you don't just stare at them funny and go,
She doesn't know what's coming.
So you
to her.
could, they wanna buy it and then get divorced? Is that what you said?
yeah.
That's fine. You can, you
Yeah,
can
you're selling
relist
two
it.
homes.
You could relist it.
Similar.
I like
Yeah.
When, the wife is not part of the deal because this house is under the husband's name before they got married.
Uh-huh.
And then they use it as their, community property. She called me one day and she said, can you pull his name out of this stuff? I told her why. She said he's under drugs and he's now out of the roof throwing stuff. And I told her she need to disclose that. We cannot do anything about this. And I went and, of course, my broker was with me and he said, unless he discloses it, we cannot do anything. And thankfully, I sold his house and he's now in Alabama.
But it's a lot, right? Like, and if the wife called and she wasn't part of the transaction and it was sole and separate and started asking for details, would you be able to give her details to the transaction?
Yeah.
Yeah, because confidentiality matters. And the easiest way to deal with this sometimes is to take a deep breath and say, you know what, let me look into it and I'll get back to you. And then put it all in writing to show that you didn't overstep a line. We've been having more and more confidentiality breaks than I've seen in a very long time in our industry. And it's agent to agent communications typically is just over speaking because agents get so nervous. And when you see the market go from 5,000 listings to 18,000 listings, listing agents' mouths get really wordy and they'll tell you everything and they just broke confidentiality. Like they'll tell you the motivation of why the seller's selling. Unless it's a material fact of the property,
Right.
that's confidential. Because I need to move to Alabama. Well, that's between your client and you, right? That has no bearing on their ability to sell the property. But the minute you go, well, they need to move to Alabama right away because they have sick family members and they, then the buyer's hearing negotiation tactics. So that's really important. Okay, your next one was accounting. So tell me, accounting, what does accounting mean?
People that takes care of your money.
Money is one aspect. What's the other aspect in the transaction that takes care of the money?
Sorry, the debits, credits.
They definitely hold the money,
Right.
but what dictates who gets the money and when you're in breach and when you're in compliance?
Accountability is when you keep track of your transaction. You're on top of it. You anticipate the next move. You are thorough because they don't know what's next.
So the timelines of the contract is where it all falls to. So what form could you use to help you with that?
Critical dates.
Yep, the critical date list, best form. So we always want to make sure we're really staying on top of that. So the next one I want to talk about is obedience. So this is when you tell the dog to sit and they sit. I'm sorry, guys, we are the dog. They say, make this offer, we make this offer with a smile on our face. They're saying, hey, I want to offer $20,000 under list price. Everything's correcting. We all know if a house is justifiable right now at list price, it will sell at list price. We know we're still selling at 100%, but we're seeing more negotiations on the back end. So you and I know we don't need to practice doing offers for fun. But if the client says, no matter what evidence we take them, no matter all the tools we empower them with, I want to offer 20,000 less. What do we do? Now, do you call the other agent and beg for a counter?
No, we should not.
I'm just gonna let you know this is going to come back 110%. We have this all the time when we shift from 06 to 07. Or when we're in the boom where the buyer's agent will call and say, look, I told them that I could justify what it was listed for. Just at least look at the offer and counter us. Please don't reject us. A counter is a rejection of the offer. I'm like, number one, you broke your fiduciary. Yes, I will use this to my advantage. Number two, I want to make sure we're not doing that, right? So when they tell us to act and do some things, we have to follow through. When you find out certain information about your client, like say they're getting loan denial and you're really upset because if our client doesn't close, you get paid. No, you're really upset. You're like, man, I was really banking on this because at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but I like to eat you, right? Like you're wanting it to happen. Do you still have to follow reasonable skill and care through the obedience of lawful instruction to obtain that earnest money back for your buyer?
You do what you can for your buyer, yeah.
And at what point does the fight for the earnest money with us stop? It's because the seller says, you know what? I don't agree. We want the money. Buyer says, no, it's my money. We've turned in cancellation. We've pointed out and made the argument they asked us to make. Do we continue arguing or do we have to back off? What's our job?
I think to fight for them in a reasonable way.
That's
It's their money, my client's money.
right. And that's the hardest part. As soon as that cancellation is canceled with escrow, that's why we make the argument before we cancel it fully or with the cancellation, our job's over. And this is a part that I just want you to know, E&O does not love. We don't really want to use E&O insurance. It's just kind of there to make us feel safe, but like we really don't want to use it. You start practicing law the moment you continue the argument. And Chris said arbitration and Marcia said mediation. And if you look at section 7 of the contract, which is not in front of you, we're just having basic conversations on these topics, right? But this is something that's coming out a lot lately. We've had a lot of cancellations happening. It says you have to follow ADR. So the most at that point we can do is send them to legal and send them to AAR online for the buyer dispute package, buyer seller dispute, where they can file for arbitration. We do not continue fighting because that is practicing law. In your newsletter this week, which came out, I put a link with an article from Michelle Lind that said, what happens when? Well, that's what it said to me. And what happens when litigation or legal has to get involved and we have to step away. And the hardest part is letting go of the thought process of that's my client. That is my former buyer on that property. And now they need to get, and that's so hard because we fight for people, right? And we try to make things happen. Connor, what's up?
When councils continue to fight, as opposed to, like, if they call you and ask, can you provide this email, can you do this, can you give us evidence of so and so, versus actually arguing on behalf of your client?
Arguing on behalf of your client would be to continually be updating the escrow company and the other side, because our fiduciary ended at cancellation because the deal's done. However, if our client or former buyer for that property, which might still be your client, right? Because you guys might have a buyer broker signed or an ER agreement if it was a seller signed. I will always provide the email trails to my client. I will always provide all written documentation and everything that I have to my client, but then it's up to them to use that to their advantage. Yes.
So the education, our job is to educate our clients
Correct.
all the way through the process. I didn't mean to continue fighting, no.
Oh, no, you're perfect.
The minute that we know if there is a shenanigans from our client or not, so we will throw it there. Hey, if you're gonna go that route, you are losing your earned money. It's up to you. I can do it.
Yep.
And put it on them. They are the one that they're gonna lose the money if they will not listen to what's supposed to happen. And it happens only once.
Yeah, I just, what I find is that in the office, even though you all just come to see each other once a week for the most part, and then people pop in, pop out, I have the same issues on files, even though everyone's just working their own world. for every week. It's like the same main topics with totally different people. And one has been lately earnest money fights, and litigation battles. And the agent doesn't let up because they keep saying, it's my client. And I wasn't pointing it at you, but you just had such a great way of speaking, Jenna. And they said, and they don't let go. And at cancellation, I just want to make sure you guys realize our fiduciary is over and you're practicing law. Yes, ma'am.
I thought when you said nefarious too,
Yes.
this was many moons ago, multi-million-dollar sale listing. Buyers, sellers truck, moving trucks at the curb. The buyer said, not buying it. They're opening a trail behind Desert Highlands. And I knew that he lived in there. So your fiduciary may end, but keeping track and keeping.
Oh, yeah.
Keeping that communication log. I just kept one on that little mini sale I just did. Because I went into there was an arbitration, you aren't gone. I sat down at that arbitration. And I just listened to everybody, and at the end, I just said, I don't know if this will help. But if it does, and I slid one fax confirmation, this was fax time. Because I'm a dinosaur. And the note to the agent said, I know your buyer lives in this subdivision now. So he got the same letter my client did saying that Pinnacle Peak Trail is opening. But would you please disclose it to him anyway for the record? And I gave it to the arbiter, and he went in the other room and he came back and he said, and the earnest money was $250,000. Okay, he came back, he goes, they'll buy that. So the record that you keep, even though you're out of fiduciary, I stayed up the whole night creating a binder. Okay, it was torture, but that's how you do it.
And back then, and actually, I kind of wish we were still back then sometimes, because emails seem to get misplaced and
Yeah.
lost, and people don't keep track of things properly. And then sometimes they're really hard, even though we can search our Gmail and everything to find exactly what I'm looking for. I'm like, why isn't this working? Whereas when I started too, we had a fax machine, so you're not a dinosaur. And because I won't call myself one yet. And
What's a fax machine?
Connor. And and if I didn't have that fax toner in and that thing manned, I mean, offers and rejections and everything that came through. I mean, we went through just buckets of paper like a day. It was insane. And so thank you for sharing that. But you're right. Connor's really good at keeping Chris's files really in line. They're Connor's files too. Go ahead, Scott.
When you first start out with the earnest money, is it in the contract to get the earnest money?
Oh, no. And you'll get to, and Scott just started this week, by the way. This is like his very first training. That when we get to contracts, you'll see that the buyer 90% of the time gets their money. 90%. Unless they majorly mess up and they're committing, well, we'll just say intentional misrepresentation of the facts and the timelines, right, Marcia? Because we wouldn't want to say scary words. No, they won't help you.
Sorry.
I'm not practicing law.
That's all I'm used for.
So we went into kind of like what things mean. And one thing I want to make sure we all understand is lines 3 through 5 of this form. Lines 3 through 5 of this form says, prior to entering a substantial conversation about real estate, a person will know where they stand with you. So when you're at that get together and everyone's giving this poor person advice, right? Totally out of context. I'm in real estate. And they're all like hovered around the one person not in real estate and giving free advice. Just let you know, doctors don't do that. I don't see why. We think that's cool. Lawyers don't even do that. They go, oh, I know enough to tell you, you need to come see me. You need to practice that same ability. I would love to have a discussion with you on your goals in real estate. But just to let you know, I don't have any confidentiality with you until we sit down and you employ me to be your realtor. So please advocate for yourself in our discussion, knowing that. But just to let you know, I won't be giving you any advice until we really sit down and go in depth.
That's my question. Because I'm not from the digital world. He called me an attorney from the 1980s last week. That's why I pointed at him. They were shoving.
You should totally know Chris too, Marcia, because you guys are, and Jenna, the four of you would just have a hoot together. Actually, we all do, but you know.
So I used to have this in the car, okay? And the minute I met somebody, and that's how you get them to start signing, okay? I'm not talking about a buyer's agreement. I want you to understand why, when you go into an open house, you say, I have a buyer broker. I want you to understand why you want me to list your house, even though, this XYZ said, well, I have buyers. So you can escape a limited dual agency. I like paper for that. So I don't know what to do. I'm always nervous when I talk to a new person because the only thing that's gonna save me is something in writing. Even if I sit there and go, now, you know, I think should have to be an agent. No, I like it in writing.
But at the cocktail party, right, or at a get together, when you meet someone, we typically don't just have a form, but I could get their email and follow up with the form. And what's cool is line 45. The undersigned buyer or seller acknowledge that this document is a disclosure of duties. This is not the employment agreement, right? And that is your first, yes, this is your first window. And Chris, I was just giving you a hard time because usually you have something to say after I do. So please don't mind me.
Well, I pulled up the last file that I sent out, I think, too. I sent them all out unsigned. or something.
No, I did not remember this at all.
No, this was 2 days ago.
Really?
We haven't seen it.
I get very excited when stuff comes in and he's not available, so I do it. And then I see a follow-up email like a half hour later, of him saying, no, those are all the wrong forms. Here's the right one, sending them off.
Oh, see that tech thing that Mark, but the key is, guys, to understand that this is just a disclosure. This is actually that not them having you employed, they're not employing you. This is still implied agency.
Right, but when you go and show a house, like I ran out and showed a house, okay, and I've been trying to wrangle her in. I want to explain this to her,
Absolutely.
but do you print one out? Or
I
you
do.
You go like that?
I always print one out. Now,
I
what
thought
we
you
were
did.
talking about is the cocktail party of conversation. I always personally have,
No, but I was gonna say, if it's an iPhone, I can easily show her how to do a PDF of it and we can upload it into.
Oh, I know how to do it, but I'm just saying, how would you do it? Yeah, I wrangle.
I'm a millennial, so I'm told that I don't like paper. I love paper.
Yeah.
I always have the agency ready. I also always have a contract pre-printed out just in case tech doesn't like me that day or that moment.
Yeah.
Like, let's say I'm in West Buckeye. Does Wi-Fi on my phone always love my computer? No.
Yeah.
Hotspots are not always our friends.
Thank you.
So I'm always prepared this way. And if I'm going to show a house my first initial meeting with them, when I used to get online leads, I would take this with me and I'd say, I can't wait to discuss this house with you. But before we do, this is not an employment agreement. You can read that right here, but I have to have this conversation with you, or I could get in a lot of trouble and lose my license. And then I would explain, basically, when you elect to hire me, which we'll decide on our next meeting, if it was a first viewing, because I have to get to know them a little bit too. I will become your golden retriever, and I go over that. But please note that I have to treat the other side honestly and truthful, which is on line 23 and 24. So a key for you guys to remember is the word hard. So you knew a different word than I know for old car. And then the word hard is how we define how we work with the other side. Sometimes it's really hard to take a phone call when you know they're grumpy and they're never happy, right? On the other side.
For this one, I know if this person is gonna have a fuss about signing papers ahead of time.
Mhm.
I would say this is required for schedule and comes for the show.
I love that.
Period. Don't put any details, don't take and give any words, that's it, and they immediately say, okay, send it over. Now we send it. They will read it, take their time, whatever. There's
I
nothing
love
there.
that. Yeah, the requirement of read it, understand it, ask me questions, or I'm not taking you out. That's great. Now what the word hard stands for when you deal with the other side. H is honesty. I always have to be honest with them. It says on line 24, truthful and honest. I'm kind of like, if that's not a given to be like a professional, that's just sad. But I guess it's not a given. Okay. A is accounting. I still owe all parties of the transaction timelines. Time is of the essence, right? R is reasonable skill and care, which was on line 23. I have to follow the standards of practice. Now, if you work in this office, we don't follow the standards of practice. We excel them. We exceed them at all times. It's all about our people. I think the standards, by the way, that the state puts forth are very low. And they make me very sad. But I'm not going to change that for other companies, just for us. And then D is disclosure. I owe a duty of exactly what you said earlier, Kathy. Disclosure to the other side on any material items that would affect a buyer's ability to close or a seller's ability to close, or if it's about the house. Like it's a fact about the house. Like, so if the trail was never disclosed, and then as a professional, I'm like, oopsie, I didn't mean to find out. But I found out this trail was going to be opened, I would do a full disclosure to all parties. So disclose.
When you do that, is there a form for that, or you just write an email?
Oh yeah, there's a form for that, but sometimes emails suffice. If it's a disclosure coming from your client, what form should we use outside of the seller property disclosure statement?
Maybe I have a question about disclosure.
Okay, hang on. Before you do that, let's do the form and then we'll do that. What's the form? I believe in you. There's a slash in between the two words. It came out in 2021. After the SPDS is done and there's a new disclosure, what form would you use if it was a unilateral disclosure? The notice/disclosure form. So the reason you guys didn't know that is because people think I make it up. Like I say, send the notice form and they're like, so I make a form. And I'm like, no, it's really called notice. So it's the notice disclosure form, because then your client can sign the bottom saying, yes, I'm updating. This is an update to the SPDS, or this is a change. This is a unilateral disclosure. After you give a disclosure, how many days does the other party have to cancel? 5 days. Section 4F of the contract. I'm just excited that's Monday morning and you're all participating.
I was thinking earnest money.
Okay, that's interesting.
But not if it's a buyer update, only if it's a seller side update, because the buyer has 5 days per section 4F to cancel based on an update.
So you are in an escrow and the buyer does an inspection and then they cancel the contract. Do you have to redo a SPUD? Seller property disclosure statement, no acronym. And so do you have them fill out a notice disclosure form and have it on file for the next buyer that's coming along?
Only if the SPDS would be not readable. That's when I would use that form. You can always use that as an attachment. In that case, for the next buyer, I would tell them to update the SPDS or redo the SPDS to reflect it.
Okay.
And then Jenna, you had a question on disclosures.
I was representing the buyer and we went to place an offer on South Mountain House. I looked at it, I've seen this house. I immediately in the MLS, these people didn't stay 6 months. The previous SPUD said there's a shooting, bullets, chipped all the stucco. So I told her why they are leaving that quickly. Is it because of the previous SPUD? Oh, well, good that you are really investigating, but no, they will have a baby and they're moving in a different neighborhood. So she didn't disclose, and it was correct, because the shooting continues in that area. Shouldn't, like.
So that is, yeah, since you asked, they should have been honest. It didn't have to be the motivation, but are there active shootings in this area? That was a question from the buyer side that should have been answered. However, I have debated with on disclosure of that type of, there are shootings in areas, and if it's something that's commonly known, is that considered our knowledge base as professionals, or should a seller be disclosing it? Because it's buyer beware too, right? Like buyer investigate the area and read the news articles. And the answer I've received back, and I've asked numerous different ways just to make sure, because we've had a few different situations over the years, is if it's something that is common in that area, the seller should be disclosing it, period. Even if it's not about their specific house, but it's about that subdivision, there's active shootings or drive-bys or whatever we want to call them, they should be disclosed.
And that's not your fiduciary duties to look into that as a buyer?
Your fiduciary is not to inspect or investigate, it is to ask questions. Now, Jenna had previous knowledge about that property, so then she asked questions because she actually had material fact knowledge. And we always have to disclose if we have material fact knowledge. The likelihood of having material fact knowledge on every subdivision and every house is very not likely. And it is not our job to investigate crime statistics, crime rates, sex offenders, or any of those items, right? And if you do, you're in a lot of trouble with your license because what if what you find out is wrong? Right? All right.
Can you send the crime link? You know, like, I forget the name of it.
What, okay, what form? Okay, be careful with RPR.
Fire advisory would tell them to do all this, but if you have a brand new wet behind the ears fire and she consistently said, is this a good neighborhood? Well, I just sent in an email, I use websites and research that. Here's a couple of them.
The other thing I like to do is send them the local police stations.
Okay.
Good.
Because no matter what area you live in, it's good and bad, right? I would say Paradise Valley is a mirage of safety because everyone thinks of the price point. Is they're still humans and there's, you know, there's still things happening. So anytime someone says, well, is this a good neighborhood? Or I love this one. Would you live here? Well, I won't live here because I have my own house and it's not here. But if there's something that's important to you, would you send your kids to school here? Well, my kids don't go to school here and you probably don't want to send your kids where my kids go. Just to be honest.
So, my point was there is a damage that's on the property due to the shooting.
Yeah, it should have been disclosed.
It's not news and how safe the neighborhood. No, that is a different. The agent should disclose that and said, hey, well, it's continuing and there's a damage as you can see in the stuff.
Yep, the agent should have passed, if the agent didn't know for sure, passed it on to the seller, got the question answered and sent it to you guys. Yeah, they didn't do a good job. I'm glad they moved on. That's a little creepy. Okay, so basically what I want to make sure you guys understand is everything we've been talking about. We're fighting, advocating, disclosing, and that's lovely, but that's only in single agency. The moment there's a cross sale with any agent in the 8 offices across Maricopa County, that is now limited representation. And in limited representation, we go from being that golden retriever to being a Siamese cat to everybody. And it is hard to deal with the transaction because you have this as a servant in our industry, as someone who services other people who's hired by them to fulfill their needs, right? For their housing search, it's hard to turn off that I'm no longer going to be going over comparables with you. I am no longer going to tell you what to do. I'll tell you your options, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. So you have to go to the HARD. I'm still going to be honest to everybody. I'm still going to be accountable to the timelines with you. Still going to give reasonable skill and care based on the standard of practice within our industry. And I'm still going to have to disclose material facts. But now everything that comes along stays inside. And instead of being their ref or their coach, it's better speak of, this is when you offer, this is what you do, this is what goes on. Even if you don't know the other side, and I'm just going to be honest, usually you don't know the other side of a dual agency situation. Even if you don't know the other side, you are the same neutral party to both parties. You cannot do anything detrimental. Now, this doesn't have to be bad. It can be fine. You just have to make sure your client understands that they're both your clients, even though you've never met them. You'll be guiding them and you'll give them whatever they ask for, but it's up to them to tell you how they want to move forward. Does that make sense? So in this section here where it says 15 through 22, broker representing both buyer and seller, that is considered limited representation. I want you to know in other states, a lot of our clients give us pushback and they'll call it dual agency. And it's kind of a bad word. Dual agency is not a good word. It has a bad feeling to East Coast people and Midwest people. But limited representation, which it truly is defined as, is what we should be saying. And it's because Edina, yeah, I said it right. Edina Realty in the 1980s was the first brokerage sued. It was the late 80s, early 90s for dual agency. because everybody represented the seller. See, when you guys see, oh geez, what is it called on sub-agency? When you see the word sub-agency on the MLS, that's because everybody worked for the sellers. Therefore, everybody was a sub-agent of the seller, and no buyer had representation. Even though you'd get the buyer to try to use you, everybody worked for the seller. And Edina Realty was sued by a whole bunch of sellers saying, the other side represented the buyers, or you represented the buyers. There was a limited no one treated us like they should have treated us. And so then buyer representation was not created until 1994. And that I can't believe is a historic year, because that feels like yesterday, right? Like weird. 1994 is when buyer representation came to. And that's what creates now. We need buyers to understand, hey, if I'm going to continue to show you properties, and the likelihood of another Realty One Group listing being that right property for you, it's actually really likely. Because out of the 18,000 properties, we have almost 1,000 active properties. We have a really good market share, right? So please don't cut them out. But I'll remind you when we get to that point that this is what changes in the event you move forward with that one. And it's nothing to be afraid of, because I'm still here with you. It's just now you have to decide what you want to do. And I'll ask you questions. And then instead of telling you what to do, because let's face it, guys, even if you tell me you ask your clients what to do, we give leading questions.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. It's kind of like what we do at home, right?
First time home buyers. I mean, they need that education.
Especially like our buyers at the inspection, like the whole time you're showing, make sure you love this home, because when you find a home, you should only ask for 3 to 5 items so the seller doesn't completely turn off and not respond to your request, right? And you say it like 50 times. So by the time you get to your inspection summary, they're like, well, you told us only 3 to 5 items. That's like, oh, did I? Well, that's up to you. Have I brainwashed you just a little bit? Is this being recorded? I will not admit it other than this recording. And these are things we need to know at that point when it's dual agency. What would you like to do? Here are your options. And when we can talk to people about that coach versus the ref, I'll call the shots with you, but you have to make your own decision. As a coach, I'm going to pretty much lead you down the path that rocks. That's the biggest difference. And I want you to know, as a Realty One Group brokerage, you always, when you represent a buyer, mark lines 34 and 36. 34 being I represent you as the buyer, and 36 saying we may enter into limited representation. I can still show you those properties. And the reason is I cannot control, and either can the man of the hour, our designated broker, Ron Copus, what you really do in the field. It's really nice to have this fantasy that like everybody listens to me and follows my directions. They're like, what would Mandy do? I really wouldn't do that. I always call Ron and say, what would Ron do? But that's not the reality. The reality is, if your client only marked line 34 and never gave permission to show another Realty One Group 8 listing, and you're out with that buyer and it's 107 degrees outside and humid, let's talk about today, and they want to see that listing, I guarantee you're not going back to see how you marked your agency. You're showing them the house, right? You're like, well, let's find out. Let's figure it out. You know, I didn't spend 5 hours in the field laughing at really bad jokes not to show you one property. Let's face it. You're going to go in there. They're going to fall in love with it, and you never had permission. I need you to have permission.
Just into initial the original.
They actually, you're always going to have them check 34 and 36. So you're always going to have permission.
What happened if don't ask for permission? They were small 50.
That's when you were your own broker.
Oh.
Thanks, Chris. That might be some of your marketing. That's definitely not your agency. When you're doing the seller side, it's always 41 and 42. One of the reasons a seller should be going with you is the power of Realty One Group as a collective. All of you together represent each other's clients. The power of being able to go out, advertise, talk about things, know that 3,000 professionals owe your seller confidentiality. 3,000 professionals want to sell your seller's house. That's a lot of power, right? And then when we do the internal marketing, that we don't want to cut out the likelihood of one of our agents representing a buyer that might like your property. So we're always going to mark that. Now, if it really happens, what form do we use? If they're like, I love this house, and you're like, of course you pick this house, the house that I have to tell you all your options, but I can't, and I have to watch how I speak at all turns, which is great. It's so great. What form at that point do we pull out before the offer? And what's the name of that form?
Limited, something like that.
Consent. Yeah, it's under C, but I like that. Mike, if you wrote limited, it comes up, right? That's the
I
key.
always write limited and pull it, but it's a consent for the buyer and seller to know.
Yep.
That I'm representing both.
Consent for limited representation, exactly. But if you put the word dual into your transaction desk or your SkySlow forms, nothing comes up. So we have to reprogram our heads to know the right term. So it's limited consent to limited rep. And that form needs to be discussed before you even ask them the terms of right for the offer. And then before the listing agent can present your offer, they actually have to present the consent form that you send with your offer to say, hey, just as a reminder, I can't harm that buyer. I can't tell you what to do. You have to decide, is this a good deal for you or not? Okay. I don't personally think it's that scary as long as it's fully disclosed. It becomes scary and a part of our litigation system when it's not disclosed, or someone keeps saying words like my buyer, my seller. So if you can change anything about yourself starting today, I would ask you in all transactions to say the buyer and the seller, because then you're always showing neutrality. And honestly, we're their agents. So they could say my agent, but they're the boss. So they are the seller or the buyer. And that's one thing that will save us all day by not showing favoritism. And the word my shows favoritism, even though it's so common. Like it's so easy because I feel like so connected. Like by the end of it, don't you feel like you should be moving in too? I always feel like, why am I not moving in with you? What do you mean? I can go now. I'm so confused.
I feel like using the phrase the seller or the buyer sounds sterile. And so I try to say my clients because I want that connection.
Well, I get that, but when you're dealing with the other side, it actually empowers you more because when you make it too personal, it sounds like you can make decisions on their behalf.
Okay.
And so just to think about it, the easiest way to say no to somebody is to say, let me get back to you after I discuss it with my client, even though we know the client won't do it, right?
Sure.
Or the seller, or let me check with the buyer and I'll get back to you.
So just when speaking to the other side, you mean?
Yeah,
You
it's the,
need mine from them. Okay.
yeah. And it's just an idea because it's really, we have no power at all. And even if a buyer or a seller that we represent said, here's your marching orders, this is what I want. It's amazing how fast they change their mind. So if we don't take it back to them anyways, we don't know how they're feeling in that moment that day. So I never answer for my clients unless they're sitting right with me. I always take a minute and say, I'll get back to you. I need to check in with the buyer or the seller. But if you do my in single agency, it's not the end of the world. I'm just telling you, if you can change your vocab from here on out, it will help you stay out of trouble.
It is all of it trouble. It's better to stay away from limits, to be honest.
If you can, but what you're going to see too is that the other agent will continue sometimes to advocate for their side. And sometimes you need to say, hey, we'll just say Bob. I like the name Bob today. Hey, Bob, I really get that you've been working closely to the seller. Like I've been working closely with this buyer, but in our communications, it seems like you're kind of siding one way. And you do realize that we both represent both parties, right? So can you just present what the buyer's asking? Sometimes you got to just be nice and just, well, I don't believe you. Okay, well, here's Ron's number. Don't give it to the man. Just give it to Ron at that point. Here's Ron's number. Please call him and see how he would like you to treat this. You can give it to their managing broker, but I like, keeping the boss busy. This also goes over my favorite item here, lines 30 through 32, which Jenna already spoke on, which is our duties do not relieve the parties from reading everything to understand it before they sign. And it's bold, it's capital. It stands out. I always like to tell clients, you can ask me the same question 20 times, 20 different ways, and I will answer you 20 times, 20 different ways with the same messaging. The key is you don't do this as a daily practice. I do. You're hiring me to be your professional. And at the end of the day, if you want to know what something means, I'm happy to describe that to you. However, if you initial or sign without asking the questions, you have acknowledged the fact that you understood what you initialed and signed. Therefore, review everything prior to signing and let me know if you have questions. Unless you, or do what Jenna does. If you don't read it and sign it, I ain't showing you any houses. I like that.
I don't think so. Like, come on. So first of all, when this is here,
Mhm.
they have to have a peace of mind that wherever they go, they will show them, present them the same document. This is our department in Arizona, unless they want to go to California. Require different documents, so we cannot skip this, that's number one. Two, we cannot show homes without it, so let's be.
Yeah, you really shouldn't. What cracks me up is when realtors don't send this to their clients and or the buyer broker for representing the buyer side until they're writing an offer. And that's a little too late. Like we've missed the boat. This really should be predated. You know, it says before, keyword on line 3, before. So the practice for you guys, if you want homework, is to pick someone like Lucinda did, that's not a realtor and bounce off. Like, if I said this to you, how would you take it? You know, if I said, well, what does it mean to be your agent? It means I owe you fiduciary. Well, how's their breakdown of that? You know, where does their mind go? Because we're not selling each other houses. Now, keep in mind, you should all be friends with people from other companies because eventually they'll not renew their license, but all of you will keep going and then they'll need to use you as their realtor. But at the end of the day, consumers' perspectives matter. And my biggest consumer in my life is my mom, who's a younger baby boomer. And she's hilarious. And I'll never forget when credit cards at department stores became a thing and we stopped doing layaway. And all of a sudden mom's like, we can take it home now. Pennies, we're going to Sears. We're just gonna, and then mom's like, oh crap. What did we do?
Yeah.
But it's always been like this world, like, no, I think she did. She was like, and back to layaway. And so consumerism like really started driving home, you know, in America when credit cards of department stores got really big, right? And that was the baby boomer generation. And I love watching her face in real estate. Like if I post a kitchen, there is no emotion. I'm like, ah, kitchen. You and I are like, kitchen. Did you see the cabinet? Oh my God, this quartz countertop. Like we will talk about it for days between us. But the consumer next to me is like, yeah, whatever. But she sees little baby feet walking in grass. She's like, oh, and I'm like, oh, home. Keyword, right? So when it comes to marketing or how we discuss agency, you need to pick that one consumer in your world that has no real estate mentality. Meaning they haven't gone to real estate school. They can have a real estate mentality, but not real estate school, right? Now what we do and go, how do you react to this? If I said this, what would this mean to you? Do you think this would be a turn on or a turn off? And be willing to take that feedback because if they don't go, ooh, then no one's going, ooh, other than you and us because we speak the same language. So have some homework, practice what you would say to people. Now, I will tell you that I did not lie to you today. At my listing presentation, sit down with people before they give me a tour of a home and I explain them about to transform into their golden retriever. That's a Mandy thing. I love it. I did work at Disney World. Like it works for me. I've had millionaires and dollar heirs and they all laugh. And then usually one person goes, show me where it says that. I said, well, the term golden retriever is not there, but if we go down to line 14, and I always have, depending on who I'm working with, highlighted on what applies to them so they can draw their eyes right to it. So you got to think, how do I get someone to visually see my value? Any questions? Anybody have any more comments?
I have a question. So just to be clear, because I'm coming from a place where we have designated agency and non-designated agency. If I have a listing and she has the buyer, we automatically are practicing limited agency.
Yes,
Because we work for the same company.
because it's under the same designated broker.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's two places. for a couple people in one agency and for one person to represent both.
Yep.
There's two
Exactly.
spots in the form.
Yeah, the consent form.
If I myself representing both, then it will be the top one, I believe.
Mhm.
But if two of us in the same broker, then it will be two, the second option.
That's exactly right. Anybody else have anything for me today?
That's a good point. I mean, if I buy and sell the house, that's even more of a reason why I want to. point out
Uh,
that agency.
That is, yeah.
When you're a
Yeah.
single agent and dual agency or limited representation, so you got to think to yourself, do you buy Christmas presents if you believe in Christmas in September and you can keep all those secrets inside? Or do you have to wait like I do to till December 23rd because you're just like, I have to tell you what I got you. Because if it's, I have to tell you what I got you, sometimes you need that extra layer. You need that extra person because what happens is you both become this capsule of information that you can't share, right? And now you can share the capsule of information. I will tell you as your friend, not as your broker, but just as a friend, if we were out and you're telling me like personal stuff about you, I always just tell myself it's not my story to share. And I don't mean to. I remember little things, but I kind of forget the big story. That way I never share it by mistake. But if you told me something I was allowed to share and it was exciting, everyone would know about it. I don't do well with like if you were like, you can't believe what I bought my husband, and when we go out to dinner tomorrow, don't tell him. I had to be sitting there like, I know something you don't know. It's awful. It's awful. It's an awful feeling. Confidentiality is hard enough when you're representing a single a single client. Like when your clients say, Mandy, I need a single level home because I have this disability and it's getting worse and I can't get upstairs to my bedroom. You don't think for a minute, I don't want to use that.
Yeah.
In some way to, first of all, love letters are bad, but like, I don't want to use that to get on someone's heartstrings to win a negotiation. But it's not my story. It's confidential. That's my client's story. And they can't choose because of disability, that protected class, But the thing is, I have to keep all that to me. And if we're losing, and I say, hey, why don't you just tell them that you're military? Why don't you just tell them this? Why don't you just tell them that? And they're like, no, I don't want to tell them anything. Either they take my offer, they don't take the offer, but I know I could win if I use something personal on them. I can't pull that card. Confidentiality. So these are things that are like really hard. So you have to decide as a single agent and limited representation. If I know too much, will I still survive the next 30 to 45 days mentally? If the answer is no, say, you know what, let me refer you to a friend in the company. You can still get a referral fee on the other side too. And sometimes even though you're making a little less, at least you're sane by the end of the 45 days. All right, guys. Well, today was a blast. I hope you got to know each other, hang out, talk to each other, sell a house. Let me know how I can help you this week. I get to go call attorneys back. Isn't that exciting? Oh, I think I already signed it this morning.
I always learn. I'm slow, so. know-it-all.
I can't get this to stop.
I thought I'm slower than anybody else.
Oh, Jenna, you're not.
Now this video,
3 years paid off.